I have the honor to introduce two entrepreneurs. I'll start with Frank. But first, a question to you, the audience. How many of you write texts of some sort? Oh, almost all of you. Well, Frank has started a company that says, let us do the writing for you. Wouldn't that be something? Instead of you doing the writing, have his company do the writing? So I have the honor to introduce Frank Feulner, who is the CTO of aexea Semantics, a company that does automated text generation. So Frank doesn't have a tech background. He studied German philology and political science, but is the CTO of aexea Semantics today. Frank, welcome on stage.
Good evening, everybody, and thanks for the opportunity to be here.
So, Frank, I understand you have a small presentation prepared?
Yes, actually, being a CTO, I was kind of eager to show you how the solution actually works and what you could imagine if you are confronted with automated content or a natural language generation application. Actually, how do I flip the slides?
Okay, well, I'll fill in with questions in the meantime. Now, Frank, how does one end up as a journalist and a writer at the technical lead at a big tech company?
Well, actually, that is a funny story because when I joined the company aexea, which is the home of aexea Semantics and the whole product line, the company was actually focused on manually producing quality content, really high quality content at high prices. And around 2008, 2009, crowdsourcing and cheap and mass content providers were literally storming the market and pushing down prices. So we thought, okay, we aren't many, we can't crowdsource anything, but we can counter by using technology. So that is basically where aexea Semantics started out.
Oh, interesting. So,
all right.
You have the presenter?
So meanwhile, I do have a presenter. And I've prepared something for you that is supposed to show you how a natural language generation application is intelligent and how it automatically generates content and text and actual speech from data, because that is what the application is actually doing. So this is the quiet state. First thing that the application needs to have is connection and access to a database and some additional information on what information it is to find inside the database. Given that, the second thing it needs is an impulse, like, for example, a customer requesting a text or a news event happening and being transported into the algorithm by, for example, RSS or an API or whatever sort of thing. What it then does is quite interesting, because there it gets really intelligent. What it does is assess the data and categorize it. For example, what patterns are there in the data, what thing or what type of event the data set is talking about, or even how does the data set compare to similar data sets and what is new and dramatic about this specific event. Funny thing is, this happens without connection to actual speech. It's a purely semantic model of a data set, which enables us to be quite flexible in the next step, which is connecting the semantic image of the data set to a grammar complex of any given language. So you have an abstract depiction of what the data conveys in information and how the text is supposed to look, and then you project it into any given language that we have trained grammar for. What comes out then is logically a text at the moment, which also includes meta text. It could be an HTML text, it could be cutting directions for a video or even program code. And that is also in the scope of actual applications for the software right now. So I also brought you some slides on general difficulties, because there are some paradigms that we are really throwing effort into at the moment and that we are seeing at the basic challenges that NLG is facing until the reader experience is superb. Actually, I'm seeing two great trends which are starting to be tackled in the NLG scene, one of which is the circumstance that machines don't have a social nature by themselves. Because the machine didn't go to school, a machine doesn't have friends in the first place, so it's not socialized and therefore has difficulties assessing, for example, soft and cultural facts. It would be difficult for a machine to say why somebody prints "Je suis Charlie" on a t-shirt, for example. An approach in which we are trying to tackle this problem is providing the machine with world knowledge or semantic knowledge, basically connecting it to any kind of available data and establishing connections between the particular points in data and between any point in data. I'll show you a slide on how that works in detail later on. Building up world knowledge and a great stack of interconnecting knowledge gets you to another challenge which we are currently throwing massive effort into, and that is, ironic right now because I'm talking very much myself, keeping the machine relevant, telling it when to stop, given an almost abundant amount of information on any given topic. So, what is world knowledge? Yeah. To explain what world knowledge is and why it is relevant or could be the next big thing in NLG, I brought you the example of a football game between two German clubs, Stuttgart and Hoffenheim. If somebody, and that is actually possible at the moment, requested a text from our software about this game, the first thing the software would do is go and query all the available APIs on what to find out about the game. It might even do that recursively, so the amount of data you end up with after a few rounds looks like this. There is green data about the game itself, for example, the outcome, the place, the date, etc. But there is also peripheral data that is further and more distant from the original scope of the game. Like, for example, the game has participants, they are football clubs, but they consist of persons who all come with their own amount of data. Until you end up with something like this. Sven Ulreich, damn you autocorrect, actually turns up 2 data points which are really relevant for him. First, being married to a model, and second, having rescued a cute little dog. The question is, this information is available at hand and the machine is able to text about it, but a really big challenge is, how do we keep it from texting about it when it is supposed to text originally about a football game? So, given that the machine is able to do so, there are applications which are actually running at the moment in the following fields. As you can see, weather, sports, finance, and marketing are really data and number-driven fields of application. And if you look at the text types that are being currently realized in those fields, you see that the trend, and possibly the additional value of the solution, is that you can text very individual and personal forms of texts, given that also user data is available in addition to, for example, game data or meteorologic data or even product data. Everything can be personalized, and because text stemming from an algorithm is cheap, it is also viable. It is also a possible strategy for example, e-commerce or publishing players to do so and to enhance user experience by personalizing. So briefly, what is the future and where does that lead us with NLG? She's tapping her clock, so really briefly. Our postulate is basically that automation is going to be available in short time for pretty much anybody to use. I would say that the company that is able to provide an end-user solution for NLG is probably the one that's going to make the race. Another trend, which may be quite provoking, is that I say that big data is going to be upgraded or replaced to or by semantic data, data and context data with additional knowledge. Interesting, because this is Boda. How would that affect anybody who is currently writing text? In my imagination, as opposed to what many skeptics may say, the newsroom of the future is not going to lack humans. On the contrary, those humans who will be producing content in the future will be able to cover a much broader scope by using computer assistance. The content that is being produced by humans is going to be premium because they can invest time and they can put real effort in content quality, in research, and in all their strongholds without being distracted by recurring and repetitive tasks, like, for example, I don't know, like, for example, a event schedule or something that is present in every newspaper and nobody likes to write. Additionally, the scope is also being enhanced by the ability of machines to draw new insights from data that are probably not visible to the naked eye. Like if you imagine a stock report, for example, for a day, that is a whole lot of numbers which are not quite intuitive to read. So, to cut it short, because time is really running out, this is what the machine is actually producing at the moment. This is once a report on the price of aluminium and its development over a day, and an actual product for football. It's a game announcement and also a game review. And that is something you can already obtain from an existing machine.
Very good. Thank you, Frank.
You.
So, time for a few questions of clarification. So, in one sentence, Frank, what's your vision / strategic goal?
Well,
one sentence.
I guess I can do it in a half sentence because it's automation for everyone.
Automation for everyone. Okay, next question. Which professions are safe from your software and your company?
CTO, I guess. No. Actually, I don't see a drastic impact because machines are doing baby steps in becoming intelligent, but are way away from being autonomous in a Skynet way. Okay. They're not going to replace humans, but instead help them. That's my vision.
Have you done tests? Can readers actually tell the difference if a text has been generated by you or by a journalist?
Unfortunately not.
Okay.
Which leaves us with a great deal of responsibility.
Okay, how do you deal with creativity? How are we doing on the creative side?
Actually, our company consists of about half the personnel in editors and journalists. The machine doesn't contribute original creativity, but is able to take creative input and reproduce it rapidly and broadly. We even employ journalists ourselves to give the texts the human touch that you can realize when reading them.
Okay. Well, it sounds very impressive. I would like to open up for the audience. Any questions to Frank or what the company can do? If that's not the case, then I'll ask a very last question. Well, Frank, I read on your webpage that you often do the development on a Friday evening night drinking beer. Is that true?
In my case, it's actually not beer, but Clubmate.
Okay.
But yeah.
It's too bad, because I wanted to use this to introduce our next panelist.
So sorry.
Thank you, Frank.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.